Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me. This is a crazy time in the history of the world, certainly in the history of my life. I've never seen anything quite like this. So I hope you're safe and healthy and home. It's a tough time for movie theaters, and I think the big winners are going to be streaming services like Amazon Prime and Netflix. But if you live in an area that has a theater that's open and you feel safe, then here's a movie that I would like to recommend to you because I think the message is very sweet and warming, which is something that we all need right now. The movie I'm reviewing is called I Still Believe. It's rated PG. It's an hour and 55 minutes. And the movie review mom grade I'm giving it is an A minus. So I'll give you a quick overview in a nutshell, point out some tips for parents and some things I liked and didn't like. So, first, what makes this particular Christian movie interesting is that it's a true life story of singer Jeremy Camp. It shines a very touching spotlight on love, loss, success, hope, and God's plan for each one of us. If you're not into Christian films, this one feels more like a gateway movie because it focuses more on the love story and not so much on Bible thumping. It's written and directed by Andrew and John Irwin. And this film will give you some things to think about and cry about. So you're going to want to bring tissues. While critics hated this movie, they usually do with Christian films, audiences seem to really love it. And it could be because it's about love and we're all feeling like we need a little bit more positivity and more love. So this movie is a great movie for these times. Some tips for parents are first that there's no profanity. Love that. There is talk of cancer and illness and dying. There's talk of life and death, and one of the characters has a disability. So those are some things that you can point out to your kids and then have a really interesting discussion about. Some other themes worth talking about are truth, love, faith. And here's some quotes that I think have some interesting lessons in them. So, Britt Robertson, who's great, plays Melissa Henning. She says, maybe God has chosen something bigger for me, something I wouldn't have chosen for myself. And there's a lesson in that for all of us as well, especially when we see the world collapsing around us. We're like, wait, that doesn't fit into my vision of my world, my plan for my life. This is an inconvenience. And God has some other things going on. So there's some interesting ideas about how we need to be open and willing to accept the idea that God might have a bigger plan for us. There's also a really touching scene where the dad, played by Gary Sinise, love him, is referring to his son who has disabilities. And he says, my life is not full despite the disappointments, it's full because of them. And again, I think that's such a powerful lesson for all of us who are going through this coronavirus and all of the uncertainty that exists, that none of us are going to get through this experience the same as we were before. Nothing will ever quite be the same as it was before because these experiences are changing us. And it's up to us to decide whether those changes are going to be positive or negative. By the way, if you need more positivity in your life right now, and who doesn't, I rarely talk about this, but I want to give a quick shout out for my daily podcast called Daily Inspirational Quote with Trina Boice. You can find it on the Volley app, or if you have an Alexa, it's a flash briefing, or on any of the platforms that play podcasts. So what I do is I find an inspiring quote and I tell you a little bit about the author, sometimes a little bit about that author's life, and share a personal story or how I've learned that lesson or the principle that's taught in the quote. And then I offer some unique challenges on how to incorporate those principles into your life. Anyway, my quick little shout out for my podcast. I think you'll really love it. Now, some other things that I really liked about this movie are, first of all, Britt Robertson. She is basically perfect in every movie that she's in. In my opinion, she's America's sweetheart. Even just a few years ago, she could play a believable young girl, but also she was matched in some romantic leads and she was believable in both roles. I just think she's really lovely. And as expected, she's really fantastic in this movie, too. I believed the chemistry between her and KJ Appa that they had together. You get to hear some beautiful music, classic Christian songs, and some new tunes. The concert scene in the movie was actually filmed at an actual concert called the Hangout Fest in Alabama. The story of the romance was sweet, but for a Christian, the most compelling part of the movie, at least for me, is the one that challenges the idea of faith during trials. Again, another message that rings very true today. It's easy to believe in God when his plan aligns with ours and things go well, right? The test is whether or not you'll still believe in him when things don't happen the way that you want them to, or that you have no explanation for. We don't have the answers to all the questions in the universe yet. And so there is faith required. Britt Robertson's character said, suffering doesn't destroy faith, it refines it. That's so true. And the times in my life when I have grown the most spiritually are definitely when I've had to struggle through trials or disappointments, or when I just didn't understand what God's plan was through all of the events as they unfold. That's when our heart truly connects with God and our souls can hear him. And it's really important to listen and to hear him in these really challenging times. Maybe it's because it's during those challenging times that our hearts are finally softened and softened enough to accept God's will for us. And sometimes that's all that we have that we can hold on to. At the very end of the movie, you get to see photos and video of the real Jeremy Camp and his family. I didn't know anything about him or really his story. And so the ending wasn't a spoiler for me. I didn't know what was going to happen. I really love the metaphors of stars that are used in the movie representing our life and the challenge that we have to shine wherever we are placed. Our light really can touch others for good. And I think it's been so touching to see people reaching out in a virtual way while we're all self isolating, and how celebrities are reading stories to people and museums are opening virtual tours and libraries are sharing books for free. I love that. And I think that the world is hurting, but it's also shining in a really unique way that is so heartwarming. Now, some things that I didn't like. First of all, there's some really corny, cheesy dialogue, but it's okay. We're going to survive the cheesy dialogue. Another thing I thought was that Jeremy really lays it on thick romantically after he's only known Melissa for a very short time, talking about their destiny together and how they're meant to be together and all of that, right? Maybe it really happened that fast, or maybe they just had to speed up the timeline because, it's a movie. Now, one thing that made me so sad was, how can you have a movie with the wonderfully talented Shania Twain and not have her sing? Like, what was the point of even having her in the movie? She should have sung a song to her son, or they could have sung a song together or something. Come on, people. So you see a scene where there's a date at a planetarium, and it just kind of feels a little cliche after that scene in the movie La La Land. It's fine. Okay, so there's a love triangle in the story that didn't really make that much sense to me. I won't be giving you a total spoiler. I won't tell you any names, but there's a guy who's interested in a girl, but he doesn't make any moves. So he shouldn't be that upset when another guy starts making moves on the girl, right? He had no claim to her, and yet there's all this drama, and she seemed to be more careful with this other guy's feelings who didn't make any moves than her own boyfriend who won the prize, so to speak. You know what I mean? Okay, so don't see the trailer if you can avoid it. It pretty much shows you everything that's going to happen in the story. I would have liked the movie to dig even deeper to see the conversion and the turning point of faith, but that part is kind of brushed over really quickly in just one scene. There isn't that much humor, which I always appreciate, especially to balance out someone who's really sick or dying or has died, that you need some counterbalance. And then finally, it's just really annoying to watch really good looking people act like they're nervous and awkward and don't know what to do. Come on. Okay, so that's pretty much my YouTube review. Be sure and subscribe. But I wanted to remind you, you can go to moviereviewmom.com, and that's where I write a bunch of lines that I find to be really interesting in the movie, as well as a bunch of other stuff that's there. I'll end with one line that I think is particularly good. It's by Britt Robertson, and this is during the scene where they're in the planetarium, and she says, "I'm just a star in an infinite galaxy." And then Jeremy Camp says to her, "Some stars shine brighter than others." So, my final thought to you is use this very unique time where you're self isolating to look at your life and find out what you really want to be and do with your life. It's a really unique time to reflect and to distance yourself from your daily routine. Maybe if you're going to work and running around and busy and crazy and hectic, to slow down and look and decide, are you who you want to be? Are you who God wants you to be? And what you might do to make some positive changes so that when things get back to normal, and they will, that you'll be a better, new, improved version of yourself. All right. I hope you enjoy this movie. I hope you can feel the love, and I'll talk to you in the next movie review. Bye for now.